current offensive coordinator for Sam, Hall of Fame member himself, and past president.
Graphics at the end of that slideshow is going to pretty much take away all my thunder. Take away all what I'm going to say. So, anyway, I'm Greg Smith. Been working with Sam for a few years now. Sam spent the past 23 years as the head coach at Pembroke Hill. His incredible record and accomplishments speak for themselves. Over the past 20 years, Sam and I have become close friends. We've been coaching against each other on opposite sidelines as head coaches. He coached for me in the Missouri versus Kansas All-Star game as an assistant coach, and I've spent the last 3 years as one of his assistants for the Raiders. Sam is unlike any coach I've known. He's very unique. I mean, who else has a Latin phrase for the team motto? Only at Pembroke. You might find this interesting. Sam frequently attends the opera. True. And he's also the same guy who will take a week off to go off the grid and learn how to build a rustic cabin. Same guy. He's the same guy. He's going to dress up for home games with a necktie. But for practice, he will use, no, not kidding, athletic tape wrapping around his belt to hold up his favorite pair of sweatpants, which those sweatpants are older than any of our players. He once fashioned a trash bag as a kilt to try to keep his pants dry during a rainstorm. The trash bag didn't work, but he did tell me that the trash bag is undefeated because we won that game. He's an ambassador for our sport at the local, state, national, and even international level. He's former president and board member of the Greater Kansas City Football Coaches Association and was inducted to their Hall of Fame this past summer. He's been a champion for the IL, Interscholastic League, in downtown Kansas City. He's been a champion for those schools, even paying dues for membership to this organization every once in a while in the past. In his role as president of the Missouri Football Coaches Association, he transformed the MFCA into what it is today. Anything you can look at over the weekend, this weekend, anything you see, Sam's fingerprints are on it. The Coaches Association Board of Directors has its only high school representative. The other representatives were college coaches. He is currently the international football coach, or international football chairman for the AFCA, which keeps him in touch with multiple coaches over in Europe and elsewhere. At his core, though, Sam is a football coach who loves his kids, and they adore him. He connects with the players in an uncommon way. Sam is a master storyteller, connecting his love of history with the game of football and his football players. His daughters Emma and Lucy are here tonight supporting their dad. I had the opportunity to speak with them, and they had a few things to say about growing up with Coach K. As little girls, they remember sitting on his pink couch in the coach's office with all of his pictures and newspaper clippings and footballs. They thought it was so cool to just be around all their dad's football stuff. They remember being so proud of being able to tell their friends that my dad is the football coach. They remember thinking that his job was so important. Felt so grown up when they were able to help their dad setting up practice, going through helmets, even sometimes going with him to games. The games were always so much fun. They loved catching him at halftime or after the game. He was always so passionate. And that was something that the girls took away for themselves and something they wanted to prioritize in their own lives. They talk about how thankful they are for that time with their dad because they had the opportunity be with him. Finish this introduction the same way our football team finishes every practice. They come together, hands in the air, and recite this poem. There is a destiny that makes us brothers. No one goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own. I'm so happy for you, Sam. Please give a hand for the Hall of Fame.
That is something that Pete Atkins and Paul Martell and their generation of coaches would be proud to see grow as it has, no doubt. Congratulations, Chris, Judd, Corey, Kurt, Kyle, and Fred. I'm honored to share this ceremony with coaches of your caliber. Fred, especially I want to thank you for the vision that you had years ago to grow this thing into something that would be the best in the country. I'm fortunate to have come on board those years when you were beginning to push this stone uphill. And I bought what you were selling. And as I look around 20 years later, I'm proud to have been a part of it. And that award you won tonight, that Paul Martell Award, I'm going to tell a quick Paul story. Kevin Keith this morning asked us, right, if the tribe doesn't sit around and hear the stories, then we don't learn where we're from. Here's a Paul Martell story. I was in an airport and got to visit him with a guy, and he said, "What do you do?" "I'm a football coach." He goes, "Oh yeah, I love my football coach." "Where are you from?" "I'm from St. Louis." "Oh, no kidding. Where'd you go?" "SLU." "Oh, you didn't play for Paul, did you?" "Yeah, I played for Paul." And he goes on telling these stories, but he says he came out during a timeout to the field. And he said, we were all staring at Paul, and he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And there was the ashes and boom, and he's yelling at him. And he said, I just stared at the end of that cigarette and couldn't believe that the ashes were falling off. So I was actually going to see Paul shortly after that at something. And I tell him the story, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to love this story. I want to know who this kid is and all that. And he went, damn it! I thought those sons of bucks were listening to me. So when my daughter was about 5 years old, I was sitting in the breakfast nook in the back of the kitchen, and I hear this rattling and this little kid type mumbling, and I put the paper down and tilted my ear to the door. She was saying, using all kinds of words I probably can't say behind the podium tonight. In frustration, she was trying to open the back door. Oh, this is strange. She must have locked herself out. So I get up and I go over to the back door, open the door. Are you all right, John? What's the matter? And I can see her fumbling around with those big plastic keys, you know, those Fisher Price keys with the big plastic ring on them. And I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm really mad. Really mad, Dad. I can't get these stupid keys to unlock the door. I said, okay, I get it. You know, it's your language, babe. You talk about your language. Just because your mom uses those words. Use those things. And she says, I know. I'm so sorry. But I can't get these effing keys to open the door. That's not a true story. I stole that story from someone else, just like most of the things in our program and playbook we steal from other people. However, my two daughters, Em and Lucy, they both indeed do have colorful vocabularies. But I am proud to see the adults that they've grown into, and I'm thankful for the influence of the men that I've worked with that I've considered uncles to my children. Equally, I'm thankful for the influence of my sister, for her role in helping us raise them. And ladies, I hope that you know that nothing this job has ever asked of me is more important than raising. And I know that you can continue to learn that fake keys will never open the door. We want to succeed in life is that there is no shortcut. Fake keys will never, ever unlock any real doors. And of course, I know that football isn't the only vehicle where young people can learn those lessons, but it is the vehicle that many of us in here have chosen to drive as our vocation through life. And as long as high school football will be taught in an interscholastic setting, then it's our responsibility to make those types of lessons the prime objective of what we do. I'm going to share a brief story of how these things ripple across lives. In 1964, a young man returned to his hometown in central Nebraska to begin a career in education, which included coaching the high school football team. A kid who was a freshman on that team was the second son of 7 kids of a local farm family. And if work could be personified, it would look like their dad. The patriarch of this clan was a salty World War II Navy man who at the age of 17 saw work as an opportunity. And he offered to buy a 160-acre wheat field from an elderly neighbor farmer, only for this deal of a lifetime to fall through when his own father told him that he couldn't buy that field from the old neighbor. An event which undoubtedly set in motion the legendary work ethic that would define him. The expectation every day was that his boys would return home after school to continue the unfinished chores and start new ones. And then the freshman kid went to a football practice. And the chores didn't stop, but the kid was allowed to continue to go to football practice. And stories have trickled down through the years that this freshman kid was opening cans of whoop ass on upperclassmen, which across space and time does not usually sit well with older guys on the team. Football became this kid's identity, passion, future. And in 1968, 4 years after starting his coaching career in his hometown, the young coach took a junior college job as the football coach. And he took that farmer's kid with him, making him a first-generation college student. And don't hear me say that college is the only path, but it was this kid's path, and it changed his life. After 2 years at the junior college, the coach took another job, this time at a 4-year college. And again, he took the farmer's kid with him. And in the spring of 1973, the farmer's kid graduated with a degree in science education and a wife. In fact, graduating and getting married on the same day. The old farmer supposedly was able to go to his son's wedding, saying it was because it rained that day and he couldn't get in the field, so he might as well go to the wedding. Anyway, that farmer's kid was my dad, and his football coach's name was Sam Sample. And that's my version of that story. And 2 guys over there are sitting in the back of the room if you want to hear the real story afterward. That's my Uncle Jim, and if you think I talk too much, wait till you see him. Wait till you see him. And if you're playing with people's lives, their self-images, their future families, and the scores only matter to give this thing texture and a context. I've been fortunate to have my own coach samples in my life. I was influenced by men like my high school coach, Coleman, who sends me a text every Friday morning during the season wishing me luck. The late Coach Wright, who taught me the importance of the fundamentals such as check steps, eyes, getting where you need to get with a bad attitude. Tom Lee, who was courageous enough to model morals to maybe some of the most immature collection of yahoos ever to be given shoulder pads. And Jay Ball, whose level of preparation serves as a model for me every weekend as I keep copies of his old scouting reports in my opponent's breakdown notebook on my desk. Sam Brown, who's a member of this Hall of Fame, no doubt spent too much time wondering how an MFCA kid from Nebraska ended up rooming with the death metal album kid from England. But it all worked out. And Eric and Ashley specifically, thank you for being along for this ride since the Moberly days. And if any of those kids are here, I'm sorry. I was young and dumb and didn't know what I was doing. But I love you. Mike Newman, who modeled what having fun while coaching looked like, and Eddie Hornbeck took me under his wing. I was a young college kid. He brought me into his film room, brought me into his home, made me feel like a member of his family. Gary Bressman also became one of my first bosses and supporters of my own professional journey as the AD at Truman High 25 years ago. And a man who's had a very large role in teaching me about being a coach, a father, and a friend, Coach Dan Stanley. I know I share this affection for him with many people in the room tonight who had a connection with him through his Hall of Fame career as a high school coach in Kansas City, but also as the coach of his alma mater, Missouri Valley College. Dan, like many of us, loved playing the game. It's like we share this similar DNA. And to the point I remember Saturday and Sunday mornings in high school, my buddies and I would drive around Omaha in the afternoons just looking for tackle football games. And we'd find them. And I remember those afternoons and those games that we played in the winter in some grass field as clearly as any that I played on Friday nights under the lights or Saturday afternoons. And when I meet guys like Coach Stanley, I realize I'm not alone. Playing the game was special. It did something to us. It made us feel a certain way. But Coach taught me that coaching and playing were not the same. They require effort. But one is playing a game, and the other is using the game towards a higher purpose. So I'm thankful for finding my purpose when I did. I was a lost 15-year-old kid, flunking classes, skipping school. I found myself the second string tackle on the freshman C team. Do the math on that real quick. That meant I was the 26th best lineman in the freshman class. In the spring of that year, I received a letter from my algebra teacher, who was also my football coach, Bob Graham. Knowing what I know now about schools, it was probably something that the teachers were instructed to do that morning at an in-service meeting, maybe. But it was a magic letter. I've read that letter a million times since 1989. It still hangs on my wall above my desk at work, reminding me of the power of influence that we have on young people. That letter changed my life. I saw the power of seeing a young person who needed to be seen. Parents can't do it by themselves. They need coaches in their kids' lives. And I'm equally thankful for having coaches on our staff over the many years who understood this charge that we hold first and foremost. I share with all of those guys who work on our program the words by Albert Einstein, that concern for man and his fate must always form the chief interest of all of our technical endeavors. Never forget this in the midst of your diagrams and equations. Many of these guys are here today. They've traveled great distances to reunite with each other and share their part in this recognition. And to each of you, thank you for your friendship, the work you did and that you do for young people. Seeing the unseen kid, being patient with the 26th best player rather than coaching the best 11. And the work you've done to try to teach a few of them to get a first down every now and then. I appreciate you, and I love you. Thank you to my parents for your unwavering support of my many stupid life choices and my career. For over 20 years, you fed those guys after every game. Sandwiches, chili, and beer. That's right. That's right. Enough beer that's probably single-handedly kept the Bush family and the St. Louis economy floating. So to our Eastern Missouri friends here tonight, you're welcome. Thank you to our alums, our managers, and our alumni parents that are here tonight. Of course, I'll always remember you as you work, running up and down the field in those red jerseys, representation of all of the others that aren't here tonight that we've been privileged to work with. I've been thankful for our extended friendship over all of these years. I'm proud to continue to watch you do life. It's a blessing for me. To conclude, the story about Coach Sample's role in my family's life has one more turn. I was sitting at my office desk, working at the time for Don Ernest, a man who taught me so much about leadership. Be available, be organized, be prepared, be a listener, keep secrets, and be blunt. And be blunt. You know, I was mad at you one time. And you wouldn't let me do something, and you said, "Too bad." Thank you for being one, Coach. And thank you for forgiving a dumb, know-it-all young coach. Anyway, sitting at my desk, the office phone rings out of the blue, 60 years after my dad first met him. I'm staring out the window. I was lower than low. Life had given me the old forearm shiver right to the jaw. I picked up the phone and I heard, "Sam, you don't know me, but my name's Sam Sample, and I know your dad."